Our Proud Pinoy this week is a lady who has made a name in fashion. She has carved a name in this glamorous world, not only here, but in foreign shores as well.
If you were already fashion conscious in the 70s or 80s, the name Lulu Tan Gan would definitely ring a loud bell. Miss Tan Gan was the name to reckon with when it came to knitwear, which was very popular for decades, and her name is synonymous with it. Many people, though, do not know what the difference between the art of knitting and weaving and even crocheting is.
Most of the designers today or brands today that are doing the hand-woven fashion, because they start from scratch working with a loomer, with a weaver. We start from scratch working with a knitter. Okay, and you can start from scratch working with a crocheter. See, so all of these are crafts that we make it into a fabric and a garment. We shape it in the fabric. Yes, it's all handmade. Yeah.
Miss Tan Gan finished her course in fine arts at the University of Sto Tomas because back then, universities did not yet offer full courses in fashion. She believes that her background in arts laid a foundation for her to indulge in her passion for designing.
That I wanted to be a fashion designer, and I think the end of the term was, I think, the end of March or April, but early March, I already applied for a job.
She applied at the SM, which back then was only just a department store, not the mall that it is today.
It was Tessie Coson, our billionaire today, who actually interviewed me. Yes, and I asked for a fashion designer job, but there was no opening because there were already other designers there that time, Cesar Gaupo, Jean Goldborn, yeah. So my first year, they put me as a shoe designer. Yes, I wouldn't say a designer yet, but you know, you sort of intern. You actually are learning from what they're doing, yeah. And then on the second year, I was offered the position to be a buyer, yeah. For the boutique square.
This was in the 70s, and from a shoe designer, Miss Tan Gan was promoted to become a buyer for the store. But since designing has always been her passion, the management allowed her to go back to designing.
So then I was focusing in knitwear because that time I was doing my buying job at the same time. So I said, I think I'll focus either on lingerie or knitwear. Then I chose knitwear because I thought, wow, I can make my own tela.
In the mid-80s, a Japanese buyer fell in love with her knitwear and got interested in the fact that she could make her own fabrics at home with her own loom.
After my work, I would come home like 6, 7 o'clock and I'd work until midnight.
That also defines Miss Tan Gan's work ethics, discipline, and passion.
It was probably work for me when it's something that you enjoy. Yeah. So it's very important you have to find something that you totally enjoy.
She never stopped learning along the way and opened herself to boundless opportunities. And then came SITEM. Back when Mina Gabor was at the helm and the DTI Minister Roberto Ongpin had the brainchild of promoting the Filipino brand. She joined SITEM and took part in the trade fairs held at the fashion capitals of Paris, London, and Milan.
So those are the fashion fairs we were attending since 1983. Tagal na. And it was called Pret-a-Porter at the Port de Versailles. Now they called it, I think they called it Next.
Miss Tan Gan worked with a knit company that was exporting and saw the opportunity to export her knitwear to Europe, not just to Japan. Then she eventually tied up with a French lady who was a regular participant in the fashion fairs abroad. And that too kept her busy as she kept her production staff on their toes with non-stop work.
When I had export overruns, I had friends who came to the house to buy, and I think Mrs. Coson heard that. SEC, and she said, "Oh, you're making export pala. Why don't you? Oh, you can do business na pala. Why don't you sell to SM?"
She was given a space in the boutique square at SM, and that was her very own first store, or at least her first concessionaire space.
I specialize in coordinates because my market was meant to be for career women. So you have a choice of mix matching
And then she discovered a new love, which is working with indigenous materials like piña.
my advocacy 10 years ago, or even earlier, I really wanted to do everything Filipino if possible, because I've started already with Filipino labor. I did exports before, but I realized that we've not known, your generation do not know much about our indigenous materials, because we're very Western in our clothing, right? Which is actually very practical. Even me myself, I've worn Western clothing myself, but our indigenous materials are not so easy to handle. That's the first thing. It was not also projected in a friendly way, wherein we know it more as formal wear and we know it more as barong, right? So it's very structured. It's for the hotel. It's very for cold places. Cooler environment. Yes. So it does not give you. It doesn't give you an idea about it, that it's possible to be relevant.
Because she is a ready-to-wear designer, having designed knitwear for the longest time, she had to think of how to mix piña with needed materials. Two very different fabrics. Knits are thick, while piña is fragile and delicate.
And piña is like in its natural color, which I was doing a lot of colorful items before, but I had to tone down into neutrals because I needed to put hindi ko naman pwedeng iwanan ng knitwear after 20, 30 years, di ba? Oo. Yeah, so it's like, how do I amalgate it? Amalgate meaning put it together. And I thought the best is really to keep the knitwear as an innerwear, like what I'm wearing. Yes, and then it makes piña more relevant, more easy to wear also, and more acceptable.
She has kind words for today's young group of designers who are media savvy, but acknowledges that her generation of designers are altogether a different breed.
We spend a lot of time in our studio illustrating, working on the materials. Until today, like, I can consider myself a costurera. I'm the one cutting the piñas. It's hard to cut piña, and it's hard to find someone who's very who has the eyesight and the patience to find the hibla of the piña, because it unravels easily. Yes, so you have to be very careful when you are cutting. Yeah, my generation of designers spend a lot in our atelier. There is a generation wherein they spend a lot on their makers, which is just cutting. But I would say this coming young generation, because there's already a difference in terms of finding makers. They're learning how to do everything themselves. And now I'm also involved with the fashion and design merchandising program in Benil, being the program consultant.
There is also the marketing aspect, a vital one in any field. She had to learn it. But the fact that she has survived for so many decades speaks well for this lady designer. She will never sacrifice quality for anything.
It's the quality for me that counts, and it bothers me when a customer comes to me and tells me that, may butas, I fix it right away, and we don't charge for that.
She is happy to note, though, that there is a growing movement to look inwards in not too far away countries, as many are now retailing local brands and promoting the use of indigenous materials.
I feel that we can be the fashion capital because we have the creatives here, and we should not be exporting our creatives. That's a no-no. So I would say that our designers or students should actually should be working with our local manufacturers, and I think most important are, I would say, what do you call this? There are a lot of venture capitalists who are looking for businesses. You should get into local fashion. Hello, where are you?
She is calling our Department of Trade and Industry to spearhead this so we can finally have what we call a Philippine fashion industry. On a more personal note, she ended this interview with her recollection of going around the streets of Escolta and Rizal Avenue as a young girl. She is definitely a Manila girl, born and bred here, and intends to keep it that way. BNL got a close look at her collection in her atelier.
This is piña, but I make it relevant. This is a little bit inspiration of barong, but I don't make it so traditional. You know, I put circles but these patterns are a little. I got inspired by the Inabel weave. You know, the Ilocano blanket. Yeah. So I translated into beadwork. So that's how I get ideas. Yeah.
As you check out her masterpieces, it is evident that Miss Lulu Tan Gan is not about to drop her love for traditional Filipino clothes.
I'm just thankful to everyone who I would say promotes Filipino. Yeah. It's really loving your own. That's important. Yeah.
That was Ms. Lulu Tan Gan, our featured personality this week on Proud Pinoy.